Thanks everyone. Sorry we're a couple minutes late here, but super excited to have everyone join today. We are going to talk today about collecting network data and some analysis. And so this is a buildup on a few weeks of work that we've been doing to prep and learn about how to take network strategy, to take what we want to use as guidance to build data-driven network strategies. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Today I'm going to start with a presentation, but I'm going to do a couple of things today where what I'm mostly doing is walking through some of the platform for how to do some of the data collection work as well. So as we're getting started, what I would just love for everyone to do who has come to the webinar today is say hello in the chat. We're always curious about who's here and where you're from and what your interest is in networks. Some of you, but not all of you, are part of our Network Leadership Training Academy. And that, of course, is our 6-month training on network leadership, where we're meeting once a month for 2 hours to go through and learn all we can about networks. So these are sub presentations in between those that give us more time to really think about the data and evaluation aspects of what we can do in order to better understand our networks, tell the story of our networks, link it to outcomes, and really engage in some good quality improvement action where we're linking data to action. So great, I can see some of you adding stuff in the chat, so that's great. If at the same time you could add in there any questions that you might have, especially about collecting and analyzing network data, that would be fantastic, because then my trusty colleague Alex will text me questions about that are popping up for you all, because I want to make sure that you have a chance to get all your questions answered. So he'll go ahead and do that, because I don't actually check the chat during the presentation. So make sure you put questions there, say hello. Great, it's so good to see everyone coming in. And okay, so what you're seeing here is the slide that started last month's demo, and the reason for that is that I'm actually building on it each time. So I'm going to do just a little overview of where we've been, so that we can really look forward in terms of next steps. So, oops. All right, so I always like to do a little housekeeping. Most of you already know about all this stuff, and you're gonna see that some things are in the past. We are still working on online courses, now mini courses for developing data-driven network strategies. So kind of to get more in-depth, some more practice, or just hear things again, you might be interested in those. But you're getting a sense of the information and content that we like to share with others, so you know what to expect. I always love to remind everyone of our Network Innovation Summit, which was last May, which was so fun and exciting to be able to do, especially as we were kind of coming out of our first times together out of COVID. But we'll be doing one again next year. And of course, the Network Leadership Training Academy has become our 6-month online virtual workshops. And if you're not part of them and you've found this workshop today because we opened it up to the public, actually, do check us out. It's full for this year, but we'll be doing it again. We've obviously done it for 8 years now, so we're set to probably do it for a little bit longer. And if you like the kinds of things you're hearing today, or just want more information, you can go and follow us on Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter, really our 3 main areas. So great, I love seeing everyone on there. Keep going with your introductions there. So I'm just going to quickly go through some of these slides to remind everyone what I'm talking about, in case this is maybe your first time here, but these are going to be very quick because we've had 2 whole webinars that kind of cover this other piece of this. Just to put all of us on the same page, when I say networks, I'm talking about nodes and lines. And I mean by the nodes as people, organizations, and the lines are the relationships between them. So what we're trying to do is think about the work that we're doing around collaboration and partnerships as nodes and lines. So whether you are doing collective impact or other models of collaboration, this is one way that you will be able to measure it, is what we're hoping. And so we conceptualize all of this similarly in this way so that we can kind of get on the same page around what we're talking about. So if you have any questions about that or how we're thinking about it, you can make some comments in the chat as well. Okay, so let's see. I'm gonna keep going. The method that we use is called social network analysis. This collects data on who's connected to whom, how those connections vary and change, focusing on patterns of relationships and the type, extent, and quality of those connections. So again, we've kind of been through this. I am gonna go a little bit more into social network analysis today, but we're going to do that in just a moment here. We do follow our partner platform methodology, which includes these 5 steps. Shifting to network mindset, which is kind of our first intro of thinking like a network scientist and why more is not always better. So main kind of principle that we follow in all the work we do is that we are not just measuring for more connections and more collaboration and more time together. We're trying to find other ways to figure out what an effective network is. But then we think it's really important that you design your strategy so we know what we're trying to do and how we're trying to do it, and then be able to measure that against that strategy. Tracking your progress in networks over time is exactly where we still are and where we're going to talk today. So we're still in the process of what is data and how do you get that data. All right, so this is what we talk about with a network strategy. This is just a high level kind of picture, and again, not going to go through all of these in great detail, but you can watch old videos. But our point in all of this work is to kind of, as you're moving through the phases of your network, to really get from a phase of building this network, kind of a phase 3 here, more is better perspective, to a phase 4 where you have a strategy and you're really trying to implement what we have found as best practices through research, which is making sure everyone has a role, trying to only invite them when they play that role, and making sure that there is a stated intention to try to reduce the amount of resource needs to get the same collaborative advantage. So that's where we're trying to go with strategies. And to get there, we do have some strategy documents and things like that. But in terms of measuring, I brought this slide in today. It's new. This wasn't in our old decks, to demonstrate when I'm talking about collecting and analyzing data, what exactly we mean. And so this is kind of a framework that has been really effective in our own thinking about what we're measuring. So while the process of building a network is, something like this over on the left side, partnerships for systems building, which could include convening stakeholders, doing needs assessment, leveraging resources, and building all those networks, we tend to wonder, how does that affect outcomes? So let's say in this example, children and family outcomes. What we tend to not do a lot is really focus on the center piece, which says the system's outcomes. What is actually happening after we build a network? What are perceptions of value, trust, and authenticity? How do we know if we're reaching our goals, our outcomes? What is that process? What's the quality of that process? I'm using words that our speaker next, 2 weeks from now, Darren Hicks, is going to talk a lot about how to build authentic, high quality processes. But how do we measure that? And then through, measures of coordination, efficiency, and redundancy, sometimes among organizations, often set in a community context. So that's what I'm talking about today. It's kind of this center box. Is like, how do we know all of these things, these really hard to measure concepts? And then how do those relate to outcomes? And further, how can we use this information to manage our system, our networks? So that's what I'm going to be really focusing on as I talk about collecting and analyzing data. So this, I actually kind of meant to have this on the slide before, but as a reminder, we have a strategy worksheet. If you don't have access to this, you can find it on our website or ask us for it. This goes through, all different dimensions of what you might be thinking about in terms of a strategy. When you work through this, kind of make intentions around, how you're going to manage your network, it makes it so much easier to collect the data and analyze it. Okay, so last thing, kind of as background, I will talk a little bit about partner. I'm doing these workshops from the perspective of the partner platform, which stands for the Program to Analyze, Record, and Track Networks to Enhance Relationships. That's exactly what it does. The partner platform has evolved just immensely over the last few years, and we're so proud of what it is now. We refer to it as a CPRM. Unlike a CRM, or like a CRM, which can track like clients or customers, a CPRM is a community partner relationship management system, sometimes used by the whole community, but the idea is that we're actually collecting the interactions and partnerships among all of the members of that data management system, and not just, kind of keeping one set of customers without the interactions between them in mind. So we use partner, and so I am going to be talking from that perspective and showing it. If you're part of the NLTA, I know that you have free access to it now, and we want you to use it and collect data with your networks. But this is the product that Visible Network Labs is building and innovating on all of the time, so that's what we use. And I always like to say, thanks from the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation for funding us for so long, and even being such a steadfast partner in our work right now is helping us to innovate it always. So this tool is used to do data collection, mapping and analysis, and tracking over time. So, that's the purpose of the CPRM, and, we're really excited about that. I always like to mention we have a feature on it called Partner Me. It does egocentric tracking, and I always say we love to talk about that also, but I'm not going to be talking about that today. So if you're interested in that, we're still setting up our next webinar on egocentric tracking or personal support, personal network tracking as a feature from the platform. I'm not really going to go through these. You'll get the slides and you can see more about partner. I'm just going to click through them so we can get to the measuring part. But as one last reminder, what we are measuring when we're measuring these networks are a series of dimensions. So network mapping is an outcome of collecting these data. So if you meet someone who says, let's do network mapping, we would say that's great, but I always talk about network maps as the front cover of the network story. Then you want to be able to open that book and read about the network through the data that you collected. So the mapping is just one exercise. It is often a really great tool for getting people to talk about your network and visually see connections, but it's limiting, right? We can't, and it really can tell us a lot about the interrelationships, and we can measure the interrelationships, but what we really focus on in our measuring and collecting of these data are also what some might refer to as qualitative, but more of the kind of process questions about the network. For example, attribution and contribution, how is this network evolving and why, perceptions of the members of each other on different qualities and things like trust and value, and things like agreement. So, to what degree are folks in the network agreeing on the things that they are reporting? How much of your network is on the same page around your strategy and your outcomes? So that's what we're really focused on, and Partner has these embedded validated surveys right within it to help you do that. So, I often talk about this, how Partner is really great because you can collect the data in the platform and analyze it there, and you don't have to leave the platform, and any question that you customize is going to be seen in the analysis as well. And so we're going to keep that in mind as we talk about collecting and analyzing the data. Okay, so we're almost there to the demo. I'm just gonna go through what the steps are. And so last webinar, what we did was we talked about that survey, the survey tool, how to modify your survey, kind of prep, getting ready for data collection, and how to add members. So you can pick from a few of the network member selection options. Not all of them are available just, for everyone in partner, because some of them are harder to use and ensure that you have good data on the other end. For example, if you're using a name generator approach where you want people to list their partners, you do have to have a step where you go back and clean the data. So that makes it a little bit hard to automate the whole process. So that takes a little bit of extra work. So we kind of reserve that to make sure people know what they're doing before they do it, because we certainly don't want them to kind of mess that up. Loading the list we did last time, and letting members list other members. So you can find our validated surveys in the template, and we can go over that. And if anyone's like, what are you talking about? Where are those things? Put it in the chat as a question. So I'll, Alex will send it to me, and then I'll know that I should cover that again. But today we're going to talk about collecting data and really mapping and analyzing it. Our next webinar is going to be on translating that data into practice. So the slides I'm using today, I have a ton because I'm already ready for next month. I was getting it all ready for today. And I love getting to the translation part. So I'm going to limit us today to just collecting it and analyzing it. When you are interested in learning more about the default survey we have and the strategy survey, you can find a lot of information. We have a paper that we published, which was just the beginning of the measures, and how we collected data on those to create some evidence-based questions. The survey is actually full of questions like this around outcomes, perceptions of success and things like that. And then you're not meant to read this. Things like frequency of interaction, types of relationships are questions in the surveys, perceptions of value between partners measured in 3 ways, and then perceptions of trust between partners also measured in 3 ways. So I'm not going to talk about the validated measures. We did that last time, but I just wanted to give everyone a reminder of what we're doing. When I say we're doing more than network mapping, we're actually collecting information on the quality of the tie, the quantity of them, the frequency of them, and really understanding what the reciprocity is between actual resource exchange as well as value, trust. And so we can really dig in and understand the network in a way that will give us the kind of information so we can strengthen it. So a map is wonderful, but it really kind of leaves us with a little bit of like, what next? So what we're doing here is packing almost an overwhelming amount of what next data into the data collection. All right, so I'm going to go into our platform now and cover data collection. And I'm kind of watching the time here so that I can also then go back and do another section just on analyzing data. Okay, so what? Now I have some data. How am I going to actually just analyze it? So to do that, I'm going to click out of here and go into the internet here. So I'm just going to do a quick check for anyone who is, who just came on to the call. What we were asking is that everyone introduce themselves in the chat, as well as ask any questions, and especially, ping me. Say, I'd really wish Danielle would talk about whatever, and I'll be sure to do that. And so, okay, so as we're here, so all of you, I hope, know how to get here, but if you don't, if you go to visiblenetworklabs.com and there's a little button at the top called login, you log in and you get to your homepage. This is my homepage, which has a lot of projects. There's 77 and 34 projects that I've been invited to. So I kind of have a lot going on here, but I was laughing today while I was prepping because I'll just show you this real quick. I was doing the date sort, and I have stuff from 2010 in here. I've been doing this a while. So that's why there's so many in here, as you can see. But what I'm going to do right now is talk about how to collect that data. And so let's see, I am working with this demo survey today. So what I'm going to do is just go ahead and click into it. So you're going to see, hopefully this looks familiar. This is my project. Most of you have 1 project in there, or maybe 2 right now. But if a lot of our users now do multiple studies across many networks. And so this is why you would see all of those. And what you'll see coming in the future are comparative analytics and longitudinal, which our team is working really hard on designing right now, so our dev team can put it all in here. But we're real excited about how you'll be able to do this across all of your projects. So I'm going to focus right now on collecting data. So I'm just going to walk through the steps of that. I will do a reminder of where we've come from. So in this network, what I'm seeing here is that there are 11 members. I haven't collected any data yet, so there's no benchmarking here of where our scores are at. I'll only get a value score and a trust score if I use those questions in my survey. And remember, those were questions that you can pick from when you're setting up your survey, or that are included in the default survey already. And then over here, you'll see survey status of, not started. I haven't sent it out, and things like that. So you'll see it's just me in here too. This is a demo, so I'm every respondent right now. But when I go to members, I will see more information about my network. I can do all the things we talked about last time here, including collecting data from this form. So I wanted to make sure I showed you this. But how these members all got here is in the last video, so I won't go through that. And then I'll also just click here on survey real quick. This is the survey that is set up for this demo. It's saying here that I've already sent out invitations. Don't worry, I was practicing things. So it's giving me a warning though, because the last thing you want to do is change your questions after you've sent the survey out, because then the new people are getting different questions in your first run and your data is going to be wonky. So it's a warning here. We try as much as we can to prevent you from messing up, just because we've had our own experiences. And as a reminder, you can customize your consent and instructions here. We have some default language that can populate if you're interested in that. And doing it that way. And then also, of course, I won't go through it. We did that last time, but this is where you would either, it's asking me, do I want to unlock it? I'm going to go ahead and unlock it because this isn't a real survey, but I wouldn't recommend that if you've already sent it. And this is where I can edit the questions. Sometimes we do edit questions after the survey has gone out if, especially for maybe a typo or we realize we forgot something. But for all those reasons, just prior to collecting your data, you want to make sure and pilot your survey. If anyone doesn't want to use the survey that you either have or bought to pilot, just let us know. We are big believers in piloting. Send it out for real to a fake or friends group so that you can see that everything is working before you do that. So you can preview. The preview is mostly perfect. There are some things that don't function as well as the live survey. So don't be alarmed by that, but you'll be able to see all your text and it's really nice. Actually, I'll just hit it. When I hit preview, it actually goes right into the survey and you can see what people will see. The relational questions, I believe, show the whole drop-down list every time so that you can actually preview them. So it's by design. So let's see, let me see if so I'm gonna go back here. And again, there's templates, and this is where you can find all of the questions from the default survey that I was talking about. And if you add a question as a reminder, this is where you can for example, pick from the library of questions that that we offer. Oops, that's a relational question. So that's where you can find the trust and value questions and things like that. Okay, so we are farther along though. We're ready to collect data. So I want to talk just for a minute about some best practices that we've learned around collecting data. So one is that in a network survey, because people's brains are kind of like getting asked to answer questions in a way that they don't normally when they open a survey. For example, there's questions in these surveys that say like, how many resources can you contribute? And they see a multiple choice question. Then your respondent will get to a question that says, from this list, pick people that you have a relationship with, or however you've worded the question. Then they'll get the list and they'll click through it. The next question will say, of those people that you just picked, now tell us about them. Tell us about your relationship and so forth. And it's like a matrix style question. Now they're being asked to answer questions which are relational. So it feels like it takes a long time. So even though we've done a lot of testing on this, a network survey may not actually take longer than another survey. Just because, you know, we're learning and we're behaving in a new way, it feels like it is. So we have found that it's really important to try to produce the shortest survey possible to answer all the questions that we have. So we don't want to ever encourage just asking a lot of questions. Some people add a lot of questions to these surveys. We are sending out surveys now that have long questionnaires, and we just know response rate is going to be better the shorter the survey is. And the fewer number of relational questions will produce an even higher response rate. So response rates for these surveys that we send out through Partner are typically between 60 and 80% response. We've had that's our average, is somewhere, you know, lingers. We have so many surveys that come in, we check the response rates, and, you know, they linger around 65 to 70%, which is a really great response rate. But we've also taken really good care to put some features into the platform that help with that. One of them is on the idea of how long it takes someone to get through the survey and how bulky it feels. When you're seeing the survey go through, for example, on the relational questions, you'll always see the list of partners and one question. So if there are 8 relational questions, you see 8 screens, rather than, you know, if you have 10 people and 8 questions, that could become 80 screens, right? If you asked it in certain ways. So what we've done is we've used the science. I learned about click science when I was at RAND, and we basically made it to be the best laid out survey so that you could collect data without feeling super cumbersome for the respondent. So that's one thing. But another really important thing is, you know, how do you invite people to take a survey? How do you actually collect the data? So that's what I'm going to show you right now. And what we've done is, again, we've embedded our best practices and everything we've learned to try to make it easier for you all who are collecting data. So we used to send out, you know, emails that invited folks. Then we used to send out one-by-one links, and you know, it's just really evolved. We are as automated as we've ever been. So I'm excited to show this to you. So this is the email part of the platform, which lets you track and send out these emails. So there's 3 things that you do when you get to this point. So the first is, you know, you've loaded your members, you have your survey all set up, and now you're ready to email folks and invite them to take the survey. So we have email templates that you can set up, which is great, especially if you have multiple networks or multiple projects. We ourselves used to have to figure out how to develop the new survey language each time or go find it. Now we just keep them in there as templates. Then you can set up an automated schedule, and I'm going to show you how that corresponds to our recommended email schedule. And then I'll show you how you can track responses and response rates. So all of this is so amazing. You'll never want to use another survey template again. And right here, you'll see, you know, the status of all of that. So that's really helpful. And down here, I'm seeing all my network members, and I can see that none of them have responded, but real quickly, I can see who did respond. And just as a quick shortcut, if I'm looking at this and I say, oh, you know, this respondent didn't respond, if I copy their survey link, I can just copy that and go send them an email and say, hey, Danielle, it would be great if you actually finished your survey. Here's the link, just click it, take it, you know, and we'll be all set. Or you can actually send them individual emails. So this is a really nice little shortcut down here for one-offs. But let's say as a group, what are we gonna do? So I'll go to edit templates. And in the template, you're going to see a lot of different types of templates. There's introduction templates, invitations, reminders, 1 through 3, extension email, and then a 4th reminder and extension. This follows our recommended schedule of sending out emails. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain that before I go through how to do those. So right here, when you are scheduling your emails, you can schedule all of these, or you can choose not to. But what you can do is use the partner recommended schedule. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for this survey. I'm going to do something kind of funky because I actually don't want to be sending surveys out to myself or others right now. I'm going to put the date in the past. That's how I'm kind of overriding the system, so it won't actually send emails. It'll let me do this, but it won't send out emails from the past. So what I'll pick here for our recommended schedule, we always pick a start date on a Friday. And I'm going to explain that as soon as it populates. So what just happened here is, let's go back. I picked the start date. So I'm just noticing the start date says the 14th here. So this might be something that we note. I wonder if that's somehow a bug. So what I'm going to do, because I don't want it to end in September. So I'm going to actually make my start date the 31st. Okay, there's something.
Danielle, if you make the start date for a Thursday, it will start it on a Friday. It starts.
Got it. Okay, I'm missing
Friday.
it. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Sarah. See, there's a, that's how awesome our team is. There's Sarah. So the 30th, thank you. Okay, so that now it's right. So we don't start on that date, so it's starting the next day, kind of save us from ourselves. So what's happening here is the introduction email's going out on a Friday. The introduction email is the one that says, hey, we're doing this survey. Here's why you should do it. Look out on Monday, you're going to get an invitation. In increasing our response rates, we have found this to be extremely effective to send an introductory email. Without the introductory email, with some pre-warning like this, our response rates are not as high. So it's a best practice. Then on Monday, it'll send the invitation that says, here's your survey, you know, it's quick link, click on it. You know, if you want to know why, go back to that intro email. We schedule reminders and we can set a threshold. So we can say anyone who has 70% or less completed or 90% or less, we set that, you set that, it'll send a reminder. So here we have a reminder going on the Wednesday, Friday, and Tuesday. Oh, and on the invitation, it'll say that the close date is 2 weeks from then. After this Tuesday reminder, we know we're starting to bug people, so we wait a few days. And then on Friday, we say, really good news for all you people who haven't finished, we're extending the survey. And this is our practice. We do it every time. It's part of our methodology. And we get a lot of new responses here. We send one more reminder, the final reminder on the actual end of the third week of data collection. And so we say it's a 2-week survey, we extend it a week, and then we always kind of get together here and we talk about whether we want to make phone calls, you know, outreach to get more in. And the survey doesn't actually close, like no one can go in it, it's open, but that helps us, you know, set a deadline. So that's our schedule. And if you put this, it'll just know to send those. You put the threshold, set up your templates, and you could walk away and just come back. Although what's going to happen, which I don't have set up to show you today, is after these are sent, you'll get an update. Or right before they're sent, you'll get an email that's just beautiful. It'll tell you who has responded, who hasn't, what percent. So you don't even have to come in here to check. You're going to get an email that's going to tell you the status of your survey. If you don't want to use this, and I can go to custom dates and I can just fill all of these in myself. And again, if I want to override sending a 4th reminder, I would put it in the past so it wouldn't send it. Okay, so once that's why over here we have templates for all of these different things. What you're going to see is that, like, I've already created templates I can pick, that, like, here I want to do Danielle's intro, that I'll send my invite, that, you know, I have a reminder email. I don't have an extension email sent up, so I'm just going to keep picking my reminder one. It knows to use the template that I created, but if I want to create a new template, I come over here, I give the template a name, like I just said, I don't have an extension one. I can come here and I can pick, you know, I'm going to do the default language of the reminder. We've just given you this just to help you kind of you know, think about, you don't have to think about a lot when you use our system. You do, it's a lot of work for all the steps, but we try to populate as much as possible. So once I have a new template set up, then when I, you know, come over here, I'd be able to pick it and it knows to send that on when I want my extension emails to go out. So that's it. Then you launch your survey, and, you know, once you launch your, you know, you're done. And so now you just kind of sit back, let it go, and eventually you get data. So What I'm going to go into next is like, what do you do once you have data? So let me just pause for a second. If anyone has a question, you can put it in the chat. Or like Sarah, you can actually even unmute yourself for a moment and let me know. I just want to make sure that I give everyone time to ask any questions they might have about that. Well, give me a second to breathe. Okay. All right. That sounds great. It's actually, once you do it, it's really clear. So doing it the first time is what's going to really help you figure out how to actually use this. So, all right. So let's talk about now, once we have data, what are we going to do then? Let's see. It's going home, I think. Did I click that? There we go. I'm going to actually go into a different survey now, which all of you have access to. There we go. My internet is so slow today. So I'm going to go here to the Sandbox project, which is free for everyone. It's really literally like, you know, a place to come play around with the data. So when I click on it, I wasn't using it right now because it's an example of analysis. It doesn't give you all the options that you get, for example, when I click demo survey to link to the different parts of my survey that I want to work on. So instead, it only has data export and analysis. So I'm going to go ahead into the analysis tool. So let's say 3 weeks from now, I've sent out my surveys and I have data coming in. So this is always going to be one of the most fun parts of doing a network analysis, is that the first time someone answers a survey, you come over to your analysis tab and you can start seeing the results. So it's really fun the first time that you do it. It does, you know, become more familiar over time, but what's awesome is that, you know, all of that work that I just did, all of setting up the survey, loading my members, sending out emails, it's all tracked and connected to what I'm looking at right here. So I don't have to really manage a whole bunch of different processes or platforms, and it's what I think the best part of our platform is. But here, let's talk about what you're looking at here. Okay, so we are ready to analyze some data. So here I'm looking at a network with some nodes. They're colorful, they've got lines, and it looks kind of messy. So what am I gonna do? So first things I tend to look for when I'm looking at a map is just kind of like who's at the center, and then what does the periphery look like? So I can immediately see that like there's an organization here that doesn't have ties to the rest of the network. There's other organizations, these down here, that only have one link. And then there's some organizations that are just really highly connected like this. When I hover on them, I can see what their actual, you know, connections are. What's interesting, I immediately want to know, right, like who is this? So I've coded them so that you can't see the organization name. It says organization 13. And so in my example here, how they are put in, if I click on this, I might be able to find some extra information that I've already put in through the member information and attributes. I can also see some network scores. So this is our default call out box. Everyone's going to get this if you have this information in here. You'll see when you load up your members, there are spots for these categories, and that's how these are filled in. So these are attributes. If you start to put in more attributes, you have more opportunities to see them in here. And I won't go into it very much right now. I might do it next time. But if I click on View Member Profile, it opens a member profile. Let me see if it works while I'm here right now. Here's a member profile. This is a very basic one. It gives those attributes. Here is its ego network. That's really all that's in here right now. And so if you are using a certain version of the platform, you can customize these member profiles. They're just amazing. We'll show you next time. You can put almost all the information, including their responses and stuff like that, right in here. So let me see if I go back. Yeah, good, here I am. So I can start kind of exploring like, who is this that's really connected, and things like that. What I can do is I can go over here, and this is where the questions that I asked in the survey are popping up. And so of course, these are relational questions. So this question says, what kinds of activities does your relationship with this organization, program, or department entail? So I want to know, what this means, what the answers are. So down here were the response options for people. They could either pick none, cooperative, coordinated, or integrated. So if I wanted, in this case, I'm seeing all the ties. So if I say, I just want to see those that picked integrated, now I'm seeing only those connections for folks that say they have integrated relationships, and you can see the definition here. I can use a feature to get rid of all the isolates here if I wanted, and I would just have a picture of this. So I might want to know, who are these people and what are they doing that is constituting enough resources to have these integrated ties. This is kind of a level of resource needs to maintain the tie. Kind of a proxy for that. We always say, we want to have a nice spread of this. We don't want all cooperative or all integrated ties. It just takes too many resources. So you can see how we step through that. But if I close that, I can see that there's also, let's see. The other relational questions. So for example here, how frequently does your organization, program, or department interact with this one? So now when I click on this, you'll see the response options change. Now I can do some, exploratory analysis where I just want to see how, who is interacting every day. We won't see that many, just 2 organizations versus every week. To be honest, our team, we don't really use frequency of interaction that much, but there are reasons that it's really important, and it's very common in a network study to have interaction or frequency of interaction. But this allows me to really start to understand my network, understand who's more, central and embedded, and I can look at it in this very exploratory way. I can also come down here and say, well, I want to look at some of my non-relational questions as they are embedded in these relational ties. So I might have asked, this one says, please indicate what your organization department contributes or can potentially contribute. So when I click on that, I can look at different responses. So if I want to say who of these members said they can contribute funding, I click on that and a little halo just appeared around those people who said they contribute funding. This is awesome. We might want to know about those folks and how they're embedded, who they're connected to, and for other resources as well. Next webinar, I'm going to talk a lot more about what to do. Now that I know that, how do I translate it into actions and strategies? So right now I'm really just going through how to look at this and understand it. I can also color the nodes, by different characteristics and so forth, and use filters to look at different things, as well as come over here and do things like, be able to look at just ego maps, for example, right inside the platform, or be able to turn off and on the isolates so that we can see those. And this is a neat feature here. If I want to download the image, I can just click on that and I get a nice PNG file of what I'm looking at. So great for presentations. So that's how we just explore the answers through the network visualizations. But, I've talked about other ways to understand network data. So I'm going to go here. We have a GIS map feature. This is showing the lines. I can change the, aesthetics of the lines and so forth. Or pull in different base layers on this to really understand where these nodes are located, and where they, how they are connected. So different reasons. You can also turn the ties off, but this is going to allow me to look at, for example, my relational questions. So if I change my relational question, it's here, it's also, going to allow me to change it on the map, which is kind of nice. You can kind of do your network analysis on top of your map here. And then I can decide, I want to look at different base layers that I've either put in or that we've made available to you. So you can kind of see how there's maybe more relational data and how it relates to some of our, some of our demographic descriptive data. 2 other things in our platform are network scores and individual, and then at the whole network level. But here's where I can see things like measures of these power and influence scores. value and trust. I know here they're on a scale of 1 to 4, and I can come over here and just see which organizations were rated by their partners highest in these different dimensions. So I can really start to come over here and look at and think about how to leverage. So again, I'll talk about this next time, but what do you do with these scores? But this is at the organizational level. You know, we can look at things of, you know, how embedded they are, how many relationships they have, how many they said they had, and use this in different ways, as well as the network scores, which are just right now one whole network level scores. So you can look at overall measures of value, overall density, and things like that. And then in our charts and graphs, it's just a feature here where you can actually go to some of the questions, you know, that you asked in the survey and see them more as charts and graphs. We're actually making a lot of improvements to this section of the platform, so that'll be fun to see kind of roll out. Something I don't want to miss here that's really important to anyone who does data collection is that you can export your data. So I can, if I just hit export my project data, it's going to show up down here. It's just an Excel file. So if you're a data analyst, you can just geek out with me for a second. It's so clean. It's so wonderful. We know the value of this clean data set, and that's why it looks this way. What you're going to see always come out is all your non-relational data. So regular data, I like to call it. So these are your nodes, your members of your network, and then what you'll see next to it is all of the way they answered the surveys or other data that we put in there. Relational data is your dyad list, your head and tail. This is how those lines are made in the map, but organization 3, for example, answered the survey that they are connected to organization 4. There's this many relational questions in this survey, and now I can see the answer to each of those. So this lists the actual question from the survey, so you can see what it is. And if you're wondering what the numbers mean, you can come over here, find that question, and this is your key. You know, they all go 1, 2, whatever. So anything that you changed in the platform, you could have changed every single question, made every single new question in the survey, and it gets loaded into here. So you've got your key, your codes, and then you have all of your data. Open-ended data gets put in here just as text. So this is just wonderful. You can put this into, you know, all your other stats program. You can use these lists and put them into other data visualization programs like Gephi or Payak or Kumu and those kinds of things. We get all the data ready for you. But what's so amazing for us is that, you know, we also just tie it into the analytics there. So if you're like me, I'm old school. I still use UCINet and NetDraw. So I was using it this week with a project that I'm working on. So, okay, and I do see that there's a question about using the GIS map globally. And I kind of have to default to my team. I don't know if we've done that yet. Sarah, if you're still hovering there with all ears, maybe you could pop in and let me know.
The sandbox, I believe it is. It's not, I think it's across the country.
But do we have a globe? Can you use the map globally?
Yes, yes. If you have an address, it will map it wherever address is.
Okay, yeah. So we don't have addresses outside of the US for this data set, so it's focusing on the US. So the actual base layers that you're seeing there, I know we only have for the US because we use the county health ranking and roadmaps data set. But if you have data that you want to put onto GIS map, ping us, because we're constantly taking in other folks' suggestions, but then we can try to put the data onto the map for you. So, you know, we're learning a little bit about that, but figuring that out. Is there a way, I'm looking at another question. Thanks, Alex. Is there a way to have an open-ended rolling survey to integrate new members as they join? Yeah, I mean, so let me talk through that from 2 perspectives. One is technically, yes, you can always do that. So at any point, I can come over here, add a member, and ask them to answer the survey. Any point. It's never actually closed. I mean, some folks actually call that a special feature. It's just closing it is actually a little bit harder than leaving it open. So what most people do, for a time too is set up a second survey. But having them rolling like that works just fine in this. Our team, our master engineer, Mike Cooper, is working well right now on data stamping. Time stamping the data. So if someone comes in who's already in there and makes a change, you'll be able to see it. So our longitudinal analysis features are something that we're working on right now. When I say working on it, what I mean is our team, we have projects that require longitudinal analysis with partners and clients. We do all of that, with manually, and then we look at what worked best. We look at all the best practices. We find all of the places we could have messed ourselves up, and at that point, when it's all really vetted, we program it into the platform. So it's coming, and we have projects where we're doing longitudinal and comparative analysis, but we're working really hard right now to make sure by the time you all get it, it's the best of the best. So now that's technically. Now methodologically, think about this. If I sent out a survey and now I add a member in, that member is going to see all the others, but everyone who already answered the survey isn't going to see that member as an option to pick as a relationship. That's only a problem if you're using a bounded list, but just keep in mind that when you add members, they see the whole list, but they will always look a little less central because the other people in the survey didn't get to see them, unless you send a note out to everyone who was already in the survey and say, we've added members, go in and see if you have any connections to them. So it's totally possible. We would, methodologically, we wanna make sure that your data is not bad data. It's so important to us. And it's really easy to make bad data when you start to make changes to your survey questions or to your respondent list. So we do it though. We have projects right now, and our whole future, our whole strategy right now, what we're working on, when I say we, the VNL team, is how to track data over time at the individual level and the whole network level. But I would say it matters so much more than just the ability to do it. The ability to do it is here, go for it. The ability to mess yourself up over time or have someone put in new answers where it didn't timestamp their old answers is really easy as well. So just keep that in mind. Awareness is really all you need here to just know what you're doing when you do that. So yeah, it's here as and if you're capturing like screenshots or point in times we capture point in time of the data set on the back end, but we just don't show that yet to you as a user. So if you are doing any of that capturing now, then eat your heart out, like let people change the data. So just keep that in mind. And we're happy to answer more questions. We are constantly trying to put in features that keep you from messing up your own data, because the last thing you want right here is data that's a little messed up and like you've asked all these people to do something and it's for naught. So we understand that the big ask to get data. So we absolutely don't want you to mess that up. Thanks for those questions. If I didn't answer that question, let me know. So what I'm going to do here is actually go back in the last couple of minutes here to the actual slides, because I want to go through just a few more ways of looking at the data. So I'll do two things. I was going to show you how we put these into reports as well, but I think I might save that since we don't have any time, because what I really did want to show you, I have a whole training, a whole workshop on network analysis, but I just wanted to go through a couple of these key principles at a very high level. So if you're starting to look at your network data, you can, use your SNA work. I've talked about whole network data and then egocentric personal network data, two different ways to look at it. Ego networks are embedded in whole networks. This is a whole network, sociocentric level. We know that networks really vary. I love this slide. It's our first 12 networks and partner that were captured. Now we're in the thousands, but really fun to just see some of that data from the beginning. You can look at subnetworks within the networks, which is really interesting analysis if you want to pull out subnetworks. And you can do that in the platform by either filtering or from your raw data, just pull it out from there. You can also look at dyads and triads. And those are different ways to do analysis. A dyad is any two nodes and the relationship between them, and a triad are the closed loops in your network. Then of course there's egocentric, or looking at the individual nodes. Just a couple of quick things here. These are centrality scores. In degree is how many ties come into a node. Out degree is how many come out. This is a kite network showing a few levels of centrality, betweenness, closeness, and why am I forgetting? Degree centrality. We went through those concepts in our early webinars, so I won't go through them again, but really trying to understand a position, a key player in the node, is why you might want to understand some of the centrality measures. I mentioned density earlier. Density is how many ties exist of all those that could. So a high density network will look like this one on the left, low density on the right. Some of us want to see more dense networks. That also means tons of redundancy. So remember in your network strategy that more is not always better, but we offer the score. It's a common score in network analysis, something you might want to look at. Centralization is a whole network score, and that means we're measuring it not at the node level, but of the whole network. You can see here that the top network, this is from my dissertation work, noxious weed networks in Missoula, Montana. This is a very centralized network here. And down here, very decentralized. In a decentralized network, you can't really even, you don't know who's the middle. You don't know who the central node is. In a centralized network, you would see this. Most networks start centralized and over time become decentralized. And there's lots of reasons why one or the other might be a good strategy. The key is make sure you know where you're trying to get, so you can try to see if your network is there. That's all. So next time, I'm going to start our webinar with descriptive analysis and reporting, and translating all of these measures into practice and action and strategies and action steps. So in the last just minute here, let's see, I have another question. We work with a few large networks of 60 plus. We'll be using Partner, yay, and are limiting our relational questions. Do you have other best practices for working with large networks? So the good news is the average size networks in our data set at least are between about 40 and 60. So we would kind of call yours average. And what you'll find is even with that size, so if you used the default survey, I'll just stop sharing, even though I think it's going to be only my head on here. But if you use the default survey, 19 question survey with about 60 organizations, we still could probably promise someone it's going to take them about 15 to 20 minutes to take that survey. And that's 8 relational questions. Because most people don't pick that whole list, but you'll get the respondent that picks like all 59 others, and then suddenly you'll have a really long survey for them. So reducing relational questions is definitely a good one to do. The other best practice I would say is when you're constructing the question where they pick from the list to kind of eliminate that, really think about how you want to phrase that question. So do you want to say, pick everyone you have a relationship with? Probably not. Do you want to say pick everyone you recognize? Probably not. What you're going to get is a ton of noise, right? A lot of those relationships that were like, oh, is that a meaningful relationship? I don't know. So instead, if you said, pick those partners with which you have an established relationship with, and then tell them what you mean. We mean you have an MOU, or you exchange clients, or you have a program together, and tell them what you don't mean, which might be, we don't mean that you attend meetings together and you know about their website, or you've gotten information from their website. So tell them what you want, and then try to get them to narrow that list, because if they can narrow that list of 60 to the key 8 and then answer questions about them, it'll also go more quickly. I would also say, last thing in that one, awesome, I actually see the comment now, so Carly, awesome. Also nice, yeah, that is an average size. The last thing I'll say on that is when you're setting that up, you might be able to tell I am an extremely transparent, honest person. So when I get to that question, I say to them, hey, this is a big question, and I tell them exactly what's happening. We gave you a long list. We want you to narrow it down. We're going to ask you questions that are going to ask you to answer about everyone you pick. We know this might feel like it's going to take a long time, but we think you'll get through it in, 8 minutes if you do these things. So just give them as much like behind the scenes information about what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how, and then they feel like they're kind of part of your team, and they'll be less put off. If we kind of ignore that it's feeling like a lot, or we ignore the fact that they don't want to feel tricked, or like I did this and I didn't know what I was getting into. So the more they can know and feel empowered about the process, the more likely they will be also to respond. All right, so I know we are just at the top of the hour, and I don't see any other questions coming in, and I'll even check the chat, but you all know that I love the connection that we have with you all, real people out in the real world doing real work. So stay connected to us, and let us know what your questions are. We're pretty good at answering them, but we love this stuff, and we want to see you be able to do that work with as much ease and simplicity and accessibility as possible. So love to see all of you all on the next NLTA, and hopefully next month when we do this. Awesome. Thanks for all the nice comments. I've reopened the comments. So, okay, you guys are our community. Just remember, if you want to keep connecting, we have the Mighty Network site, so we don't want you to not to wonder where you can stay connected to everyone. Okay, so everyone have a great rest of your day and week, and I think we'll see most of you soon. Thanks, guys.